world, it's Keely and I'm back for another video. This is going to be my final library book haul of 2025. Today is the 31st of December. I have a big ass stack of library books here to talk to you guys about, and also I want to tell you about the ebooks that I also have from my library, because I'm trying to just use my library a lot. I'm trying not to buy any books, and I'm very excited to read all of these, but it's going to take a little while to get through. We might as well just get started. Now, the books that I have on my Kindle that I'm reading from the library, I have it pulled up on my laptop. The one that I'm reading from the library primarily is the ebook version of The Bone Shard War by Andrea Stewart. Y'all, I am desperately trying to finish this one up. I'm really enjoying it. It's just taking me a long time to get through for whatever reason. I know that I think over 200 pages through it at this point, but I'm not 100% certain what page I'm actually on. But this is one that I was really hoping to finish by the end of the year. That's just not going to happen, but hopefully it'll be one of my first books completed for January. That's the end of a trilogy that I've been working on for a while. Fingers crossed, I'm going to finish that soon. Then I have two other books that I would really like to get to in January. One is one that I have only seen a couple people talk about. This one, I think, is the start of a series, but I'm not entirely sure. This one is The Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps by Kai Ashanti Wilson. And this one says, since leaving his homeland, the earthbound demigod Dene has been labeled a sorcerer. With his ancestors' artifacts in hand, the sorcerer follows the captain, a beautiful man with song for a voice and hair that drinks the sunlight. The two of them are the descendants of the gods who abandoned the earth for heaven, and they will need all the gifts those divine ancestors left to them to keep their caravan brothers alive. The one safe road between the northern oasis and southern kingdom is stalked by a necromantic terror. Dene may have to master his wild powers and trade humanity for godhood if he is to keep his brothers and his beloved captain alive. I've only seen, a couple people talk about this one, but it just sounded really interesting, so I put that one on hold and I got it. And then the other one that I have from the library currently is the second book in the new fantasy series from Martha Wells. This one is Queen Demon, and it's a continuation of a book, it's a continuation of a series that I started earlier this year in 2025, and that was Witch King. But I'm gonna have to do like a lot of research to see if I can find good solid summaries of the first book in order to continue on, because while I kind of remember how book one ends, I don't remember enough about individual characters, which honestly is what is happening with this book with the Bone Shard War. I remember enough of some of the characters and what happened to keep me going, but it's been like a lot of times they're talking about stuff and I'm sure it's going over my head because it's just been so long since I read the other books in that series. But we're just gonna power through because I don't want to reread a lot of books for huge fantasy series. All right, let's get into the big bag of books. I grabbed 2 volumes in a manga series. This one is My Brother's Husband. So the first one is just My Brother's Husband, I guess volume 1 by Gengoro Tagame, and very much looking forward to reading what I think is like a super cozy, but maybe I'm wrong, queer manga series. So yeah, it's just volume 1 and then volume 2. Then I grabbed this memoir graphic novel that is What is Home, Mum by Saba Khan. And this one, when I was reading it, it sounded really interesting. It says, what do identity, belonging, and memory mean to one young Muslim woman and her family against a backdrop of history? As a second-generation Pakistani immigrant living in East London, Saba Khan paints a vivid snapshot of contemporary British Asian life. In an uplifting and universal story that crosses borders and decades, she investigates the complex shifts experienced by different generations within immigrant communities. This compelling personal narrative explores race, gender, and class to create a strong feminist message of self-reflection and empowerment that is illuminated in stunning artwork. And then I grabbed one that was just, it made me laugh so hard. This one is called The Gay Who Turned Kaiju by Kazuki Minamoto. And this one says, bullied gay teen Takashi Arashiro wishes he could just be somebody else, but who could predict he'd morph into a giant-headed sci-fi creature? It says Takashi's tumultuous emotions become the catalyst for personal and social exploration of the LGBTQ experience in a quirky and profound story from prolific BL author Kazuki Minamoto. I'd never heard of this one, but it just made me laugh a lot. The title made me laugh, and I was like, okay, well, obviously I'm gonna pick that one up. Then we have Dan in Green Gables, a modern reimagining of Anne of Green Gables by Ray Tessero and Claudia Aguirre. This is editing Keely to say that I butchered their name, so I looked it up. It's Ray Tessero and Claudia Aguirre. This one is about 15-year-old Dan Stewart Alvarez, who wants to settle down. His mother abandoning him in rural Tennessee with two strangers, his gentle grandmother and conservative, rough around the edges grandfather. Here he's forced to adjust to working the farm, entering high school, and hardest yet, reckoning with his queerness in a severe Southern Baptist community. Even as Dan grows closer to his mama, befriends fellow outsiders at school, and tries to make a new life for himself in Green Gables, he has to discover whether he can contend with intolerance and adapt to change without losing himself in the process. I just thought it sounded really interesting. I love Anne of Green Gables, as a lot of us do, and I am very excited for a queer retelling. This one is In Limbo by Deb J.J. Lee. I honestly can't really tell you anything about it because they put a big old sticker over the back of it, but I am really excited about it. And I picked up this one, which is Japanese Notebooks, A Journey to the Empire of Signs by Egort, I guess. But this is a history of Japan in graphic novel form, and I thought that would be really fascinating to read. Then I think just a couple more graphic novels, and then we can go into the books, novels, and nonfiction. I grabbed this one, which I'm super excited about. This one is The Middle Ages, A Graphic History by Eleanor Janega and Neil Max Emanuel. I have watched a bunch of Eleanor's documentaries and interviews and stuff on YouTube. She is a historian, and this is one that I've had on my Amazon wish list for a long time, but I'm happy that I found a copy that I can just read it from the library. Then I grabbed Sensory, Life on the Spectrum, an autistic comics anthology edited by Bex Allerton. I thought this one would be really interesting to read. I'm trying to read more diversely in general, like continue that process of constantly trying to read from other voices and learn about other experiences. And this year I'm really going to focus a lot more on neurodiversity and disability. And so this one I thought would be really interesting, and the artwork is also super adorable all throughout. So I'm very excited for this one. And then I think the final one that we have is And Now I Spill the Family Secrets, an illustrated memoir by Margaret Kimball. And this one just sounded so fascinating. It says, a powerful graphic memoir about motherhood, divorce, and mental health. Margaret Kimball's And Now I Spill the Family Secrets begins in the aftermath of a tragedy. In 1988, when Kimball is only 4 years old, her mother attempts suicide on Mother's Day, and this becomes one of many things Kimball's family never speaks about. As she searches for answers nearly 30 years later, Kimball embarks on a thrilling visual journey into the secrets her family has kept for decades. Using old diary entries, hospital records, home videos, and other archives, Kimball pieces together a narrative map of her childhood, her mother's bipolar disorder, her grandmother's institutionalization, and her brother's increasing struggles in an attempt to understand what no one likes to talk about, the fractures in her family. That one sounds so fascinating. I'm very, very interested to find out what the secrets are of her family as well, and learn more about her experience with uncovering it. Both of my parents are now dead, but my mom did have bipolar disorder, and so it was a very interesting childhood. I wonder how much I'm going to relate to this author. All right, let's get into the rest of the books. Let me just pull them out. I grabbed a lot of nonfiction, and I think maybe that's all that I have. I'll figure out with you guys. So I grabbed The Loneliest Americans by J. Caspian Kang. This one is a riveting blend of family history and original reportage that explores and reimagines Asian American identity in a black and white world. In 1965, a new law lifted a century of restrictions against Asian immigrants to the United States. Nobody, including the lawmakers who passed the bill, expected it to transform the country's demographics. But over the next 4 decades, millions arrived, including J. Caspian Kang's family. They came with almost no understanding of their new home, much less the history of Asian America that was supposed to define them. The Loneliest Americans is the story of Kang and his family as they move from post-war Korea to a housing project in Cambridge, Massachusetts, to a college town in the South. Their story unfolds against the backdrop of a rapidly expanding, internally unequal Asian America. Kang tracks the creation of two Asian Americas, the upwardly mobile urban professionals who have invested in the idea of a multicultural elite, and everyone else. Neither really fits into America as a whole. I have a couple nonfiction books about Asian America, and I need to read them. But this is one that I didn't have. I wanted to read this one first, and then I'll start pulling from my collection and start reading them as well. Then I grabbed this one, which I recently saw on someone's channel, and I can't remember where I saw it, but it sounded really interesting. This one is called We Refuse, A Forceful History of Black Resistance by Kelly Carter Jackson. This one says, Black resistance to white supremacy is often reduced to a simple binary between Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s nonviolence and Malcolm X's by any means necessary. In We Refuse, historian Kelly Carter Jackson urges us to move past this false choice, offering an unflinching examination of the breadth of Black responses to white oppression, particularly those pioneered by Black women. The dismissal of Black violence, it's got quotes on it, as an illegitimate form of resistance is itself a manifestation of white supremacy, a distraction from the insidious, unrelenting violence of structural racism. Force, from work stoppages and property destruction to armed revolt, has played a pivotal part in securing freedom and justice for Black people since the days of the American and Haitian revolutions. But violence is only one tool among many. Carter Jackson examines other, no less vital, tactics that have shaped the Black struggle, from the restorative power of finding joy in the face of suffering to the quiet strength of simply walking away. It sounds like it's going to be incredible. I am super excited to get to this one. Then one I've been seeing on a lot of people's channels recently is The Message by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I read Between the World and Me years ago when it first came out, but then I never picked up any more of his writing, but I'm very interested in reading it, and I've heard amazing things about this one. Says Ta-Nehisi Coates originally set out to write a book about writing in the tradition of Orwell's classic Politics in the English Language, but found himself grappling with deeper questions about how our stories, our reporting and imaginative narratives and myth-making expose and distort our realities. The first of the book's three main parts takes Coates on his inaugural trip to Africa, a journey to Dakar where he finds himself in two places at once, a modern city in Senegal and the ghost-haunted country of his imagination. He then takes readers along with him to Columbia, South Carolina, where he reports on the banning of his own work and the deep roots of a false and fiercely protected American mythology, visibly on display in this capital of the Confederacy with statues of segregationists still looming over the public squares. Finally, in Palestine, Coates sees with devastating clarity the tragedy that grows in the clash between the stories we tell and reality on the ground. I am so excited for this one. Okay, I'm excited for all of them and hoping to read all of them in January on top of everything else that I'm reading, but I'm very, very excited for that one. Then I grabbed this one, Asian Other by Vidyan Ravinthiran, and this one is Life, Poems, and the Problem of Memoir. And this one also has a freaking sticker on the back that covers up half of what it says about the book. Ravinthiran writes both about and through poems discussing Sri Lanka, experiences of racism and resilience, intergenerational trauma, pandemic parenting in an autism family, relationships shaped by the internet, growing up with a speech impediment and being sent by one's aspirational brown parents to elocution lessons, and the relative invisibility of South Asians in Western television and film. I thought this would be really interesting to read. I read a decent amount of Asian literature and nonfiction, but that's primarily always been focused on East Asian. So I'm trying also this year with like expanding where I'm reading from like South Asia and other parts of Asia. So I am very excited to read this one. Then we have a book about running, which is like only part of the story. This one is called Spirit Run, a 6,000-mile marathon through North America's stolen lands by Editing Keeley again. I looked up a video and I watched the author talk about their book and then say their name. I don't know how to make the mouth noises that the author uses for their last name, but it's Noe is the first name, and then the whitest version possible of their last name is Alvarez, and I really don't know how to move my tongue to pronounce it another way. But this one I thought would be really fascinating to read about. I am a runner. I love books about running, and I thought this one would also be just really interesting. I'm also doing, I just found on Instagram, another reading challenge, and this is an Indigenous nonfiction reading challenge for the year. This one will definitely count towards that. It says, growing up in Yakima, Washington, Noe Alvarez worked at an apple packing plant alongside his mother, who slouched over a conveyor belt of fruit, shoulder to shoulder with mother's condition to believe this was all they could do with their lives. So that's a quote. A university scholarship offered escape, but as a first-generation Latino college student, Alvarez struggled to fit in. At 19, he learned about a Native American First Nations movement called the Peace and Dignity Journeys, epic non-competitive races meant to renew cultural connections across North America. He dropped out of school and joined a group of, I don't want to ruin, I don't know how to say all of those. I will put all of the different names of the indigenous people, the indigenous communities, on the screen. A group of all of these different people that are runners, all fleeing difficult beginnings. Telling their stories alongside his own, Alvarez writes about a 4-month-long journey from Canada to Guatemala that pushed him to his limits. He writes not only of overcoming hunger, thirst, and fear, dangers included stone-throwing motorists and a mountain lion, but also of asserting indigenous and working-class humanity in a capitalist society where oil extraction, deforestation, and substance abuse wrecks communities. Very excited to learn. There's I read a decent amount of history, but honestly, I have a huge gap when it comes to North American history, like United States history in general. I've been trying to fill that gap and learn more about like actual history versus the stuff that we were taught in school, which is very, very whitewashed, America's the greatest kind of vibe, instead of all of the horrific things that Americans have done over the years to get to where we are now, which is still committing horrific shit. I am working on that consistently, constantly working on that in a lot of different ways, and reading more indigenous North American books will also help with that. Then we only have 2 books left. We have this one, which is Rivermouth, A Chronicle of Language, Faith, and Migration by Alejandra Oliva. Says, in a deeply felt polemic memoir, Alejandra Oliva, a Mexican-American translator and immigrant justice activist, offers a powerful chronicle of her experience interpreting at the U.S.-Mexico border. Having worked with asylum seekers since 2016, she knows all too well the gravity of taking someone's trauma and delivering it to the warped demands of the U.S. immigration system. As Oliva's stunning prose recounts the stories of the people she's met through her work, she also traces her family's long and fluid relationship to the border, each generation born on opposite sides of the Rio Grande. In Rivermouth focuses on the physical spaces that make up the different phases of immigration, looking at how language and opportunity move through each of them, from the river as the waterway that separates the U.S. and Mexico to the table as the place over which Oliva prepares asylum seekers for their credible fear interviews, and finally to the wall as the behemoth imposition that runs along America's southernmost border. I don't know any actual facts about immigration for the United States. Other than that, it's a very difficult process, and they're constantly government is constantly changing it and making it impossible for different groups of people to come to the United States. That's kind of the extent. It is a very controversial topic in the United States, immigration, for many different groups of people for a lot of reasons. And I will be reading that one as part of Lauren from Lauren in the Books nonfiction challenge for the first quarter of the year. For the she's doing it seasonally. For winter, she has a list of prompts, and one of them is to read a nonfiction book about a controversial topic. I thought immigration would be a very controversial topic to read about in the United States. The final book that I have is one that I'm very excited to start reading probably today, honestly, and taking notes. This one is Feminist Theory from Margin to Center by Bell Hooks. I haven't read any Bell Hooks in a while. I got introduced to their work in grad school and maybe a little bit in undergrad, honestly, but my women and gender studies minor for my psychology undergraduate degree is a very white, middle class, able-bodied, heterosexual woman lens, and so I've been trying over the years to supplement that and fix that. And then in grad school, I have a social work master's. We read some Bell Hooks, but I don't think we read that much. But it's been a while since I've read anything from them, so I'm very excited to read this one and continue to make my way through their work. that is everything that I have from the library. I'm in a very heavy nonfiction mood right now, but I'm trying to balance it with reading lighter things about happy topics, so that I don't get overwhelmed and end up doing what I did this past year, which was I spent the beginning couple months of the year really studying a very difficult topic, and then got really burnt out and basically didn't read anything that challenged my brain after that. And I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to get burnt out, and I don't want to not read anything that's kind of challenging me throughout the year. So I'm going to try to balance a lot of these heavier trauma-laced books with more like uplifting nonfiction and fantasy and things like that. As I finish books for every month coming up in 2026, I have a big ass spreadsheet where I have color coded things of how to keep track of all of the different challenges that I'm doing, so that at the end of each month I can tell you guys, like, this book knocks off this, and this, because there's a lot of bingo boards, a lot of other challenges that I'm doing. If you have any nonfiction books that you're reading or you did read in 2025, you know, you're excited to read for 2026, let me know what they are, because I'm always looking to expand the nonfiction that I read. And that is going to be it for my final book haul of 2025, which is all library books. Very excited about that. I want to say thank you all for everyone, whether you're new here or have been here for a while. I appreciate you all so much. Really enjoy trying to interact with you, even if I don't comment all the time. I'm trying. I appreciate you guys. I see you guys. I hope that you have a lovely end to the year, a wonderful start to the new year, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.